slightly dangerous terrain, but I can throw one thought out. I looked into this some years ago when the statues started coming down in 2020. And there are some places where I think there was like very weird overreach, and I can understand some places where some locals might have like got resentful about that. If you go to Monument Avenue in Richmond, there are no monuments. It's just an avenue with a lot of like stone bases, on which you could put a statue at some point, but there aren't. If you're into plinths, it's a great place. Just a lovely place. And in fact, the only statue that is still there is, what's his name? Arthur Ashe, the tennis player.
Arthur Ashe?
Yeah, so there's a big statue of him. It's the only one still standing. And he's got a child kneeling there with a book, and he's got the tennis racket up. And unfortunately, it looks like he's about to beat the child. But it's just, I can...
Bill Maher, a veteran host famous for his sharp humor and bold conversations, recently gathered a panel to explore some of the most important issues shaping today's society. Among the guests was Douglas Murray, known for his thoughtful and often challenging views on culture and politics. Together, they examined topics ranging from the cultural reaction to historical reassessments to the complicated connections between economic inequality and public health. As the discussion unfolded, it revealed the deeper tensions behind these debates and reflected a larger struggle many societies face: how to balance new progress with long-standing traditions. Murray's clear and direct observations about cultural and political change blended with Maher's well-known ability to question rigid viewpoints. The result was a conversation rich with insight and different perspectives. Their exchange highlighted how difficult it can be to find balanced solutions in a world where opinions often stand far apart. At the same time, the discussion emphasized why it is so important to address uncomfortable truths instead of ignoring them. Viewed through their perspective, the panel's conversation became more than just a look at current events. It served as a reminder that thoughtful, informed dialogue is essential in a time when division and frustration seem to dominate public debate.
My point is, I can understand if I were a local, I might have got a bit annoyed about this. Yeah.
But I think it's worth remembering that the Confederacy celebrated slave owning. And these statues weren't built during the Confederacy. Sure. They were built when the Jim Crow laws were being enforced and segregation was really being enforced. So I think we need to know our history and honor our history, but I can understand how it would be tough to live in a town that is celebrating people who really thought that slavery was a great thing.
Well, everybody thought that, by the way. I mean, I agree. Now, first of all, to re-put the statue up?
No, that's sure.
Great. I mean,
But you can do what museums call retain and explain.
The decision to restore Confederate names in schools across Virginia has sparked intense conversations about how history should be remembered and what values a society chooses to highlight. The issue has gained even more attention as some people see it as a reaction against diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. At its core, the debate reflects a deeper national disagreement over how the past should be presented and understood by future generations. Author Eric Schlosser notes an important historical detail often overlooked. Many Confederate monuments and school names were not created during the Civil War period itself. Instead, they appeared decades later during the Jim Crow era, a time when segregation laws were widely enforced.
I mean, you say we need to know our history. How are people going to know their history if there's no statues representing anything that happened except for one side? I mean, in most countries, like France, for instance, France said in 2020, the president himself said, we will take down no statues, we need to know all of our history. And that's
in
to explain
the Soviet Union, should they have kept the statues of Marx and Lenin
of course, there are places,
after Russia became a republic?
They did. I've been to them. There are lots of the former Soviet republics put all the statues in a park, for instance, where you could then go to look at them. That's
a museum would be great.
Right, it is.
But a lot of the statues we're talking about are not explanations, they're venerations.
Sure,
celebrations.
Exactly.
And if they're celebrating, as you just spoke so eloquently to, if they're celebrating things like slavery and the Confederacy, then I think it's worth having a conversation about whether they belong.
According to historians, these symbols often serve to reinforce racial separation and promote ideas of white supremacy within public spaces. At the same time, commentators such as Douglas Murray and Bill Maher have suggested a different approach. Rather than removing historical artifacts entirely, they argue that such items could remain as educational tools when placed in proper context. In their view, museums or carefully explained displays can help people learn about difficult periods in history without celebrating the figures connected to slavery or rebellion. This debate highlights a continuing challenge faced by many societies: how to honor historical truth while also recognizing the harm connected to certain symbols. Finding a path that respects both historical awareness and modern values is not simple. The conversation remains passionate and often divided, showing just how complicated it can be to balance remembrance with responsibility.
And they were traitors.
And they were traitors.
They were traitors. This was a war against a secessionist.
Yeah, but people also have to remember, I mean, look, there are obviously cases like that, where, like Stonewall Jackson, I don't think you particularly need to have a school named after. But, don't forget in 2020, this rampage went all the way through to any high school named after Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
Well,
So
there's a logic,
Right.
and it can get out of hand.
And it got out of hand very fast.
You were talking about what might happen with the Trump administration. I hope that we're not going to have in Monument Valley the January 6th insurrectionists and what was the guy with the horns? Statues of those rebels.
The importance of historical education quickly became a key focus of the discussion. Panel members stressed that learning about the past should include the full story, not just the comfortable parts. This means teaching students about difficult subjects such as slavery and long-standing social injustices, while also explaining how these events shaped the world we live in today. Understanding history in its complete form helps people see the bigger picture and recognize how past decisions continue to influence modern society. Douglas Murray pointed out that historical monuments can still serve a meaningful purpose when they are presented with the right context. Rather than removing them entirely, he suggested placing them in locations like museums or educational spaces where their history can be clearly explained.
I could see.
But he will get them out of jail.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
He will pardon them.
But I mean, again, on the slavery thing, don't put up statues of traitors who supported slavery, but also teach kids the truth.
Yeah.
Slavery was a horrible thing that everybody in the world did, including people of color in other parts of the world. It's all through the Bible. Every civilization did it. They didn't even think it was wrong. There's no laws against it in the Bible. There's a lot of laws about it, and nobody ever goes, oh, maybe we should just not do it. Never crossed their mind.
Right.
Again, teach the whole story. That would be my
absolutely.
In this setting, monuments become learning tools that help people explore the past while remaining respectful to those affected by it. This method aims to balance education with sensitivity. Such an approach encourages communities to face the complicated parts of their history instead of pretending they never happened. By examining these moments honestly, societies can gain a deeper understanding of how events unfolded and why they still matter today. When history is taught with care, detail, and thoughtful explanation, education becomes a bridge that helps reduce division, address past wrongs, and guide future generations toward more informed and responsible choices.
How does our tiered economy, this is for you, Frank, contribute to people's sense of grievance? Oh, yeah, that's in your book.
Yeah, no, I write a lot about that in the book. I think one of the things that's happened to us is our economy has become such an engine of envy, right? Our service economy is tiered in a fine-grained way that it never was before. When I was a teenager and I went to a rock concert, I remember getting up at 3 a.m. and going to the Hartford Civic Center, what it was called at the
Who
time.
were you seeing? I have to know.
Queen.
The conversation also turned toward the idea of a tiered economy and the rise of grievance culture, exploring how growing financial gaps can lead to frustration and division. Journalist Frank Bruni discussed how social media makes these differences more visible than ever. Online platforms constantly display images of luxury, exclusive events, and expensive lifestyles, which can make economic inequalities feel even sharper. When people repeatedly see what others can afford while they cannot, feelings of envy and disappointment can quickly grow. Bruni pointed to a clear example: the extremely high ticket prices for concerts by Taylor Swift. For many fans, attending these shows has become so expensive that it highlights a broader culture of exclusivity.
Queen.
And I'll tell you, right, but here's the thing, there were basically 3 sets of seats. There were 3 ticket prices.
Right.
And if you wanted to sit, as I did, close to the stage, I got 8th row. What you did wasn't shell out $10,000 or more as people do for one of the like $250, $350 prices for a Taylor Swift ticket. You actually went in a quasi-egalitarian way and you stood outside online. Got into the 8th row, caught Freddie Mercury's tambourine when he threw it out at the end of the show. Those were...
What was once a shared entertainment experience now sometimes feels like a privilege reserved for those with greater financial resources. Situations like this reflect how economic differences are increasingly visible in everyday consumer culture. Social media plays a powerful role in widening this perception. By constantly displaying the opportunities, travel, and entertainment enjoyed by wealthier groups, these platforms can unintentionally deepen feelings of exclusion among others. Over time, this can contribute to a broader sense of grievance within society.
You still got it.
So what happens? I ended up losing it over time, which is a terrible.
Suddenly,
story.
it's the Kelly Clarkson show.
But you take the Taylor Swift concerts as an example, right? People are paying so many different prices, and then they are going on their social media feeds and they're posting pictures of how close to the stage they were. Sometimes it's a family of 6. You're looking at $10,000 shelled out for one evening.
Sure.
We are more aware of the people who live on the echelon above us, the echelon above them, the echelon above that. It is in our faces in social media all the time, and I think it fills us with envy and drives us apart. It's part of our grievance culture.
The panel suggested that understanding these dynamics is important because economic inequality does not only affect finances, it also shapes social unity, personal confidence, and overall well-being. Thoughtful reflection on these systems may help communities better understand how to reduce tension and create more balanced opportunities. If you enjoyed this discussion and would like to see more thoughtful conversations about culture, society, and politics, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. We would also love to hear your opinion. What are your thoughts on historical education, economic inequality, or the cultural debates taking place today? Share your ideas in the comments below. Your perspective helps keep these meaningful conversations alive.